Hi,
Hello. Hi, everybody. Hi, Rafia and
Hello.
Kino.
how's
Kino,
everyone doing?
doing well? Yeah. Kino, do you want to explain about your, what is it, in vitro rather than in
Lack of
vivo?
video. Lack of video. Okay, yeah. So for the listeners, I am not on video for today's show because something's up with my camera because I had a show on Zoom and on Microsoft Teams between yesterday and today, which affected the camera, and I do not have enough time to uninstall the programs to get StreamYard working again. So yeah, but at least we got the vocals going, so that's all right to work with.
Today on
How's
Talking
everyone
Back to
doing?
Suicide.
Yam Tap, you ready?
Yes. Today on Talking Back to Suicide, we're very honored to have Rafia Maxi Cole with us. Um, I think it was back in September, Rafia, that I had learned of your organization, Soul Survivors of Chicago, and had reached out to you, right, on behalf of suicide prevention. Uh, I was reviewing your website this morning and also watching videos and the documentary on your son, Jamal. Uh, and I want to read a little bit from the website, right? So it was back in May 2020 that very sadly and tragically Jamal died by suicide, which you described as the worst day of your life, which I can understand. I think we all can understand. And that you went on to found the organization, which we want you to share about. And you wrote that the mission is to provide suicide prevention awareness and education to our BIPOC and underserved community to enhance the importance of mental health, advocate for suicide prevention, and provide much needed emergency funds to individuals impacted by suicide, trauma, or loss, and that the organization mitigates suicide risks through trainings, projects, workshops, public speaking, the financial support, and also that you have a grief support group. And at the end of one of the videos that you had done, it said, and I think this kind of informs us being together, it said on the screen, in terms of suicide prevention, we can do more together than we can do alone. Let's come together, combining our abilities and passions to affect real change surrounding mental health and the impact of trauma, violence, and suicide to one's overall well being. And there was another statement on the website that really spoke to me, and I'd like you also at some point to share on it. You said, it takes a village to raise a child, dot, 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 and a child to teach a village. So, with that introduction, warm welcome. And please begin to share your story and what you want the whole world to know and hear and take in their heart.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, Diane. And hello, everyone. I bring you greetings from Chicago. It is approximately 7 degrees below zero today. So we're really experiencing Arctic cold. But today is such a important warming and passionate topic of mine that no weather can break it. So I just want to thank you first for allowing me to be part of this platform, talking back to suicide. And yes, my name is Rafia Maxi Cole. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, but May 27, 2020 changed my life completely. And that's when I lost my son. His name was Jamal by way of suicide. Jamal had just turned 19. He had just graduated from high school 11 months before. It was 2 days after George Floyd, and we were in the midst of a Black Lives Matter movement as well as a COVID pandemic. So you're talking about a lot of things going on at one time. The true backstory with Soul Survivor started with me, after everything had happened and I'm in my own state and all the flowers and cards had stopped. I'm looking to myself and saying, like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I just lost my son and I don't know how to navigate this world anymore. And so I saw his shoe and I saw it on the floor and I said, wouldn't it be great if I could just take Jamal's shoe, clean it and sanitize it, put his name in it, and give it to somebody who's in crisis or experiencing crises and say, here, this is my son's shoe. I'll never see him, graduate from college. I'll never see him have children. But when you put this shoe on, it's a symbolization of you walking in a legacy of somebody who's cut short. So everything you do, walk in purpose. Remember you're doing it for two people in a lot of ways. And with that message, it ran across to many other persons who had lost someone by suicide. And we decided that we were going to collect those shoes of those we lost and make sure we connect them. And it branched from there. And I just learned so much and continue to learn since the loss of my son. He truly is an example of a lot of things when it comes to this mental health challenging and disparities. My son's first attempt was at 12, and we went through a horrific challenge with the mental health system to the point where I always say, I think my son died at 12. He just existed to 19. And so with Soul Survivors, we do a lot of things. Our main focus, like I say, is to educate and advocate and to provide those supports to those underserved communities. I'm from the South Side of Chicago, and I'm proud of that. But we have more needs that have not been addressed, especially when it comes to our wellness and well-being. It's hard to find somebody to actually say, here, this is where you go for your mental health resource, or this is where you go if you need support with, finding a gun lock, things like that. So we're out in the community and we're passing out that information. We're speaking to local groups and schools and connecting with those organizations. And then we do a support group. Our support group is called We Are One, and it's a nationwide one. Anybody who has lost someone by way of suicide and is of the BIPOC community, we don't have as many resources to kind of connect. And so I felt it imperative to have this group. And we log on once a month. We get a chance to have a non-judgmental zone of really talking about our griefs and our losses. And it connects us because we can feel connected again after we lost something so precious to us. So outside of that, there's a lot of other things we've done in the community. We recently did a documentary that we have finished, and it's been accepted as of this week to the Small Rig Film Festival. We're really excited about that. And it's called While the Children Fade. It tells the story of myself and two other women who have lost their children by way of suicide, and then the disparities and some of the things we know as it relates to how these things occur so much in our communities of color. So I invite anybody to go to our YouTube page and basically get a chance to watch this short 29-minute documentary that will change your life and really get a chance to see the humanization of what suicide really is like.
And we will definitely share all the links and Facebook page, right? And encourage people to watch and learn. In reviewing what was shared on your website and the videos, it talked about bullying. Could you share some thoughts about bullying and how that impacted Jamal, as well as what form of bullying? Of course, all bullying is wrong, absolutely. But were there specific things that these bullies were attacking your son about?
Yes, our discovery became just as like a peeling back an onion, as I can recall, when my son was in middle school, which is a very delicate age for our youth. And we must take really consideration around those times when they're between ages of 10 and 14. He was invited to a new school to attend because it was an honor school, but it was a mix of kids. And essentially, the bullying occurred by persons who Jamal wasn't able to probably speak up to. A lot of the bullying would have to do with self-image things or teasings, to the point where there was a couple of things that became physical. And because my son was so mild-mannered, he was a very, very quiet child, very, very responsible. And I'm not saying it because he's my child, but he was very respectful to women and females. So to have this happen, and especially from a female, it became a challenge from him, and we didn't know this. So therefore, he wouldn't be able to speak up as much, and he was respectful and so forth. So the bullying became ongoing, and it was something that Jamal took internally. Because he was such a quiet kid, well-mannered, we couldn't see the signs because he wasn't showing them, and we didn't know what to look for as well. We just noticed that things looked kind of off sometimes. His shirt would look dirty when he come home from school, or he would go straight to his room and just do his homework, And so in retrospect, those kind of bullying issues were coming up, and it was a very, very challenging time for us. Yes.
How did you even come to know about the bullying?
Yes, that was the day I'll never forget. I picked Jamal up from a 3-day trip the school had, and upon picking him up, I could see in his face that he was extremely distraught. And I asked what had happened, what's going on. This was a out-of-town trip, last week of school. He was so excited the whole year about it. And he just broke in tears and says, "I hate myself." And I couldn't understand what happened. So essentially I said, "Hold tight," drove home, came back to the school. And in that conversation with the school, my son was at home trying to hurt himself. And so that was the pin that kind of dropped, because I got notice of that. And then through the exploration of working with the counselors at the school, down to him being able to talk more, we got an idea of what the sense of really was going on. It took its height at that 3-day trip, but this long-term effect of the bullying that was happening throughout the school year was nothing we knew. It was just at the pivot of that trip that we got the whole picture of what was going on with my son. Yeah.
Did you feel that in that conversation, beginning with the school, right? Were they responsive to you? Were they taking it seriously?
I think that there was a very much call to action, because I was very much enraged. One, because my son just was teased and bullied, and he was such a well-known kid and liked. Why was this happening? That's the first thing. Second thing is that the school knows me to be an invested parent, someone who's an educated and grew up in the schools. I even went to some of the elementary schools. So, to have this occur to one of their former students is a no. And then to have a connection with the principals, and knowing that I'm not only going to not let this die down, I'm going to be proactive in making sure that he can return back to this school in a healthy manner. And I took upon myself, without asking, a lot of the questions about how do we do this. We did an anti-bullying campaign, and I was spearheading how to have that event happen and all that kind of stuff. So they were taking a lead by me, and I believe because of the advocacy and passion I had, that they knew that they had to be on board. So I believe there was investment, but it was more led by my true desire to see this change. Yeah.
And did Rafia, the school or the teachers, were they aware that Jamal had been being bullied?
No one could pick up, and everyone was in a state of shock of it. unfortunately, I think that's one of the things we look back at is like what we could have seen or what we saw that we didn't see in those kind of eyes. You know, bullying comes in so many facets, and how you can learn about it can come out in so many ways too. For example, a lot of kids have writing assignments. Sometimes they do art projects, and those things speak to kind of the mindset they're in. As I look back at my son's things that he's done in class and things he wrote about in journals I found, I could see how he was speaking to certain things, but no ear could hear it, or we didn't acknowledge or know what it was actually saying. So, yeah, I think that was something that was just not clear enough for all of us to see, and especially the teachers who were astounded once they did find out. Yeah.
You know, join in.
Yeah. Hi, Rafia.
Hello. How are you?
So many areas of discussion. Firstly, I want to say condolences for Jamal. It's not something easy to go through. I can't even imagine, I never had to face such a situation in my life before. But when I look at you and I listen to you, globally speaking about your story, you are a strong woman in society, like really strong. And you have gone through something so um terrible, you know couldn't find the right
Yeah.
word to use there, but something so terrible, and you still come out on the other side strong. I know inside you are still hurting, you know but
Yes.
you are extremely strong at this present moment in time, where a lot of people around the world, a lot of women around the world, um, are unable to find that strength again. And this,
Mm.
I'm talking now from a personal story and experience that I saw happening in my community, of a mother losing their child. In this case, it was due to murder, but she just couldn't find her way back. And she ended up using substance abuse to um, eliminate the pain. And ultimately, she ended up also passing away. So,
Mm.
what can you say to mothers out there that have gone through what you have and they're unable to find that strength again? There is no hope for them. They've lost a child. The child was their world. What can
Yes.
you say to, like, women out there, or actually, anyone out there who just cannot find the strength again to come back from it? Like, what can you advise them to do? What can they implement in their life?
Thank you for that question. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, I can say many things. First, I can definitely say that to connect and empathize with that is a strong point. When we do work and we meet with people who have lost someone, particularly a child, there's something with the death of a child that's just a little different than others, mainly because we have always had the conception that they're going to bury us and we're going to live their lives and watch them work it together, as they grow. But to have a front seat at a funeral and you're seeing your child is a experience beyond others. It's real, it's really real. My advice is kind of a complex of things. First is that this thing called grief is going to be with us for the rest of our lives in many different facets. There'll be moments when you have anger, there'll be moments when you have depression, there'll be the moments when you have denial. You'll bargain a little bit, you'll get in acceptance at one point, and then you'll move back to, so it will roller coaster because our loved one is dead for the rest of our lives. So we must be cautious with ourselves and how we feel, especially with our emotions, and be mindful of what stage we're in that time. The second thing is to know that you are not alone. And we use that word so much in society that it kind of makes you feel like, well, how am I not? And to have these platforms like what you're doing gives the person who's listening to say, okay, my story is coming out of her mouth. So I know that there's a connection. And so I ask and urge of persons who have lost hope when it comes to losing a child that the best thing we have to do is get reconnected to the hope and the love people can bring to us. I found myself when I lost my child going to Google because I could not remember anything that I had been taught in all my years of social work of what to do in this stage. I don't even think I was taught. So I'm Googling all types of words, suicide, help me, child died, what to do, support groups, And that was the worst experience because at that point, I feel like I should have at least had some post-vention or maybe some supports, but I didn't. Luckily, when I did that and I started a connection, it started to help me with knowing that I'm not the only one because it's a very isolated world. We know when we walk into a room that they look at us and they say, that's the one whose child took his life, you know. And I can't say that they're lying because it is true. You
Yeah.
can see it on their face. But the connection, having a connection, and then having some supports with therapies, getting a spiritual connection if that works, or something with a higher being, and being around healthy platforms to kind of feed your mind with what you can do. Because here's the thing, I'm going to remember my son with more love than pain. I have a lot of pain. I have a broken heart, but I am going to remember and I'm going to honor him with more love than pain. And I have to remind myself of that. So I would tell parents of that too.
What you just said now, like about people saying, there's the mother, her child committed suicide. I also recall, another lady who also lost a child, and there was a lot of judgment towards her, especially from her family, you know.
Yes.
So how did you deal with that judgment? Like, how did it affect you?
I still deal with it. I still believe. I know I haven't outwardly had questions that have been insulting. I have more things that you can interpret a little differently. For example, oftentimes in these platforms, I may be asked questions like, what do you think you could have done better?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
something like, what do you know in hindsight? I don't think there's a blue book for parenting. I've looked for it and even, you know, Googled it.
Yeah.
There's just no blueprint. So those kind of things can be kind of hard and harsh and kind of, insensitive to think through. But the stigma associated with this is the bigger part because a lot of us can't say. And then if we do know, we have never spoke about those persons who have said, I have ideations, I don't want to do this anymore, or I've taken my life. It's very much a difficult thing in my community to speak on, although we all think about it. And studies have shown. Yeah. So,
Yeah, because I mean, this lady that I met, who
hmm
till today, she still gets judged by her family, that it's all her fault. So, from what I evaluated with her, she still takes it to heart, even though it's
hmm
so many years after, she still takes it to heart, you know. So,
I
what
think
can
the big
we do with?
thing, yeah, I don't mean to cut you off, but
No,
um,
no, it's fine.
I'm learning that as much as a parent I was, I'm not responsible for many of the choices and things of my child's behavior and how he felt. As much as I poured into him, as much as I gave, the decision making part, somehow I have to divorce myself from being the sole proprietor of. Because
Yeah, yeah,
I taught my child how to be an independent thinker and to be able to explore and that kind of thing. So freeing yourself from knowing that you are and you did the parenting that you knew best. And none of these things have a reflection on us, but all that have to do with that dark tunnel that all of us have been through, and my son went through that day, that nobody could have been a part of. Not me, not God, not his friends, not his loved ones. It was him in that tunnel. And unfortunately, when we get in those tunnels as parents, we feel like we are part of saving them and they can see the light. But the illusion is the tunnel, the light is the real part. And so I say all that to say that the parents should really take a step back and know that these things are totally different from our love and how we put and invested in them. That makes sense.
I've read some articles talking about a person in that acute suicidal thinking, using the analogy of being on fire, that they're literally emotionally on fire, and that the thinking skills are not there, right? To be able to process that, yes, I don't feel well, this is a terrible situation, I want to die, but I don't have to die. And in that emotional fire, a recommendation has been that the mind and the body need an immediate intervention, not the intervention of killing yourself, but they mention even taking a cold shower or dipping your head in water, cold water, because the shock of that is going to change, your emotional state and your thinking state without even purposefully doing that. Just the fact of having that cold water on your skin is going to help you. Because I'm just thinking about that moment, that the moments of decision, right, which isn't a rational decision, and that change from, and for some people, the change from the suicidal thinking to the suicidal behavior could be within 30 minutes or even 10 minutes or less, right? And in that fury of call it that fire of emotion, the person is not in the mindset to reach out to someone for help and to call 988. There has to be something immediate that they can do to bring their temperature down, as it were. And what you were just sharing kind of reminded me of that. Could you speak on that, about the idea of someone who's alone, they're on emotional fire, they haven't told anybody what's wrong. If you had a magic wand, right, what would you wish for that person to do?
Yes. I would wish for that person to start looking at those protective factors that are in their lives. I know the difference between those people, places, and things that feel me, enrich me, make me feel like this decision I need to think through. Those are the people that I hold close to me, whether I remind myself through bracelets or wearing, something that honors them. And when I make decisions that are tough, I think about them and I acknowledge that they have a big impact on what I do. So if I decided to, um, you know, um, do something that might cost me, my health, that would impact my daughter or my mother. Or if there was something that impacted my, spirituality, it would impact, my relationships with my friends. So I feel that when you have an idea of who those protective people, places, or things are, and you keep them, they're part of your decision making, good and bad, not just good, but also in the tough times. And so when you get that chance to look at them, and it could be as simple as a pet or something that holds weight to you, you would ask yourself what that means to you and why this person is so valuable to your lifespan. And when you answer that, then that can kind of bring you back to the whole totality of why do I want to continue this thought process, knowing that, I have these great things. So protective factors mean a lot to me. Um, and I think they're very valuable. Yeah.
I know we have the 988 number, right, for emotional crisis and if someone is suicidal. But I still feel that it's not, well, one, I don't think the number is known, well enough. And also I think that the whole concept of there are mental health emergencies, right? We talk about physical, well, the mind and the brain is part of our body, so it's all physical, right? But somehow there's a dichotomy, a false dichotomy. But we talk about having a heart attack, but you can have a mental health emergency attack too. I just don't feel that there's enough attention paid to that. And that whole idea
Yeah,
of reaching out for help, some people think is weak, but it's actually strong to reach out for help.
absolutely. Absolutely. And we've got to change that narrative in our families and our loved ones. It's okay to not be okay. It might not be all right, but it's going to be just fine. Having those in conversations, not just asking people, "Are you okay?" and you responding yes, giving them context of what it is. I'm a 6 today. I'm a 10 today. Having those deeper conversations. And at the same time, really getting the idea to not get so afraid to this word mental. I've never been around so many people that have conned mental as like this bad word. We use wellness, which it is, but mental health is health. My command center starts here, and so therefore everything here helps me to do everything out there in my mind, my brain. So having it in a good stance. So I think that there's a lot of work to be done on how we're talking about this very, very important, common, everything everybody goes through state, and how we can incorporate it at a very young age. We should be, if we're not, and having these conversations on how to sustain it because we take it for granted, I believe. Yeah.
When you say, Rafia, we take it for granted, what is it that you feel is taken for granted?
I think we take for granted the fact that our mental health is just going to be fine. We're going to push through. In the African American community, we are keen to being survivors. We survive so many things within our society and with our culture that it's almost embedded in us to stay strong. And I think we take for granted that our brains really thrive on being healthy and that they need that support. So we take for granted that, you know, that's not, I guess the best word to say is that our minds will just continue to operate as it did Sunday and last month or on our birthday. No, we have a mix of things. It's heightened anxieties all the time. And so um, don't rely on it just being in one state. Always work on it, you know, always keep
It's
it
like a
in
survival
yeah.
mindset, survival
Yes.
instincts.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
always there. It's automatic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I just want to take a few steps back before I forget about it, just for the audience. Like what you said about there is no one guide in the world that's going to tell you from A to Z the perfect way to raise a child. It's not possible, you know? And that's so critically important for parents to like really understand your kid because each child, each kid is different, is unique in their own way. So
Mhm.
stop focusing on the guides and pay more attention to your child, um, himself or herself, because they're unique in their own way. They think different, they act different, they are different. I just wanted to put that
Mhm.
out there. And this is also coming from personal experience, with my own parents, even though, they love me, they thought they were doing what was best for me at that time. They grew up in a different era, but they didn't really know me as in, what I was capable of doing, what was my talents and skills, and, what I can actually bring to the world, because they were following the standard guide. This is the SOP on how to raise Kino, but doesn't always work. So, yeah, I just wanted to push that out there, what you said, critically important. There is no one guide.
Yes, yes. If there was, we all be doing it, you know, and
We'll all be perfect, but we're not.
we all be perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, we're not.
Rafia, I
And I
wanted
love
to.
when. Oh
Rafia,
no, I
I
was just
wanted.
gonna say, well, yeah, one more thing. I love when you use the word how you divorced yourself from it.
Mhm. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Rafia, I wanted to ask you um, another aspect of what silence, shame, stigma, and you mentioned stigma before. Um, in your professional role, right, as a licensed clinical social worker, right, with great experience helping others, right, and I can join in this conversation too as a child psychiatrist, right. And in my own experience, I had a teenage patient, a girl, who also had some experience of being bullied, who died by suicide. She hanged herself. Um, also had an adult patient with chronic pain who also died by suicide. Other adult patients who were writing suicide letters, fortunately did not act on that, but perhaps a year later gave me some letters, including one that he had written to me. As a professional, did you feel supported by your community, professional community? Did you feel comfortable sharing what had happened to you personally? And I'll bring it back, to myself in terms of the experience that I had, is that um, although I shared about that my patient had died by suicide, um, I also was concerned, maybe rightly or wrongly, that people were going to judge me in a negative way. I think I also went through a self-exploration, right? What if? Did I miss something, right? Questioning, my abilities as a psychiatrist, that this could happen. And would my colleagues, feel, quote, less of me, right? And the fact that, from my experience at least, although I'm not quite sure the exact statistic, but if you're in the mental health field, you're almost guaranteed, right? Maybe 50%. Again, I'm not quite sure the exact figure, but your patient or your client has a risk in your lifetime career of that patient dying by suicide. Right? So this is unfortunately something that can happen. Of course, it is happening to the person who died and their family, but it's also, the effect of that is also with the counselor, the psychiatrist, the teacher. So I'm bringing it back to you in your experience. What was that like for you? But here you are as a mother, right? And also as a mental health professional.
Yeah. Double dip. That is a very good question. Well, naturally, I did feel the support of the grief and the connection of coworkers who could really empathize with losing. I think that's the common thread, that even though they did not know my son or maybe had met him, all of them, those core people that are surrounded in my professional part, were very responsive and supportive. I do believe at the same time that I was just trying to figure it out myself, but I had this urge that I can't explain to be able to tell and support his story on my own versus others telling it for themselves. And because of the nature of how he passed away, I felt like impelled to say, my son died by suicide, and it's unfortunate, but I'm going to, you know, be the first to speak about this because it happened, and I won't sugarcoat that. I am going to lean on how to navigate through this, and then be an example of, the reality that this didn't have to happen. This just didn't have to happen, but we did have this happen, and we are at this place. How can I see that my life with my son can continue in a legacy of another way, like living with him in a different way? Don't want this way to live with him. Definitely would have never chose it, because I got thrown in this river and now I'm swimming upstream. I think my lifesaver is just basically saying that this is what occurred, and I'm not going to let the stigma define me, and not care really about how people feel about it either way, because it's such an important thing to talk about, you know. So I just felt that in my bones. I still do. Yeah, it's
You are a
I thrive.
passionate, speaker, right? Your heart is just overflowing, right?
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Mhm.
And I love that you don't care. That's good. Don't care.
Yeah,
Do what
yeah,
you do. You know.
yeah. It's a
Don't-
point where I lean on the reality that I can save a life, even though my son's life was taken way too long. It gives me pleasure to know that at one point, something I said or something that we've talked about can let Jamal's story live in somebody else's life to move forward with. Somebody who is at a suicidal ideation, hearing about my son's struggle, turn his life around, means that Jamal still lives in a way. He just helps somebody else live. That
Yeah,
makes sense.
yeah.
Yeah,
Amen to that. Yeah. Amen to
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Just on the topic of bullying, there's not really a question, just something I also just wanted to put out there. It's a sensitive topic to me, especially living in this era, like bullying has advanced. Now it's gone online. I still feel from the schools, from society, there's still not enough awareness around the topic. You know,
Mm,
as you said yourself in your experience, you didn't know. And there's a lot of kids out there today who are still getting bullied, but they're just not, mentioning it to their parents, to their teachers. And with this generation that we have now, they are so emotional, you know. It's not
mhm,
like, I'm not saying, everyone was, tough growing up, but it's just gotten worse, from what I've
mhm.
also evaluated. It's gotten worse. They're so sensitive. It can be like the slightest comment and they're in tears. Um, like what
Yes.
message can we push out to these kids, using this platform, using talking back to suicide, for
I
them,
say the
because-
perfect way to go about that is to look at it like this. Have you ever had something happen to you and you made it and it felt like the end of the world, right? How come our children can't have that experience as well? And the reality is that they can and they are. And so oftentimes when these situations come and they're teased, they're bullied, they're put on a platform that makes them the spotlight. That is the end of the world in their eyes. Maybe not in ours, because we see it as don't be too sensitive, like I said, don't take it for nobody can define you. But in that context, and those social elements and those people that help define them and help build their character, to have somebody diminish it, that is the end of the world in a child's eyes sometimes. So I look at it from their lens, not mine anymore. Things that really mean something, things that they're connected to, there's purpose in that. And I can't belittle it or marginalize it. I have to be respectful to it. So if it is about somebody stepped on my gym shoes and you're thinking, well, we'll get new gym shoes. no, it's the end of the world. And I'm using end of the world lightly, but it's like that is the crisis. So we've got to change our thinking pattern from not thinking like they'll get over it or, just give them a pat on the back or cheer. Let's respect the fact that this feels very daunting to a child or a loved one. And then respect it to the point where we work with it on that end.
Yeah.
I'm feeling even now, maybe more than ever, we all need to cultivate an atmosphere of care and kindness and compassion towards each other. Because even in the public space, politics at all, there's so much bullying and anger and aggression that's going on, that in a sense, I think we need to do as much as we can to advocate for change. And we also need to help ourselves be in a nurturing, safe, warm environment, right? Almost to protect ourselves from an atmosphere of bullying that can potentially go on, let alone our own personal experiences, right? Of being bullied, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I know that per most recent statistics through the CDC, as reported by the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, that suicide is the second leading cause of death for young people. Overall, suicide is the 11th leading cause of death in the United States, and for certain communities, including Black youth, are BIPOC, LGBTQ, are at increased risk, as well as Alaskan Natives, Native Americans. Can you speak a little bit more, Rafia, to Black youth and maybe even Black males? Sometimes more attention can be played to females having suicidal thoughts or taking their lives, and yet it's males who actually are dying by suicide more than females. Of course, no one should be dying by suicide, but could you speak to that in terms of the Black community?
Yeah, actually, I'll do my very best. I believe what I'm learning in this cycle is that through these conversations, we're learning that suicide ideations are more common in our community than we think. And that oftentimes we don't have that ability to even acknowledge that that's what we're thinking, but we know that there's some kind of thought process in how we're processing and coping with life on life terms. The second thing that's come up and I'm noticing is that while traditionally there has been a big gap between Blacks and Black males and Black females, we're seeing a reverse now, where Black females between the ages of 10 and 14 are surpassing Black males as it relates to suicide ideations and attempts. And then with Black males, we're learning that the way of passing by way of suicide is through lethal means, and more Black males use lethal means than any other way of passing. And within all the statistics that are coming up, one of the things that shines the hardest on me is that our numbers of children are continuing to grow from a very young age. So in 2020, when my son passed, our youngest victim was 9. In our documentary, one of our great sisters in our group and sister of mine, her name is Khadijah. Her daughter, Cherish, died at 11. So we're seeing our numbers go very young. And then at the same time, not having the ability to kind of work with them in the postvention stage. Indiana has an awesome program where they actually do postvention, and immediately after suicide, they have the whole team of people come to the home, give the resources, connect with the community, who's the, people in charge, what we can do kind of thing. And that means the world for somebody who has just lost a very precious thing and not have any idea of what to do next. So studies are still coming up. I will say that there needs to be more monies and dollars. There's got to be more monies and dollars around suicide prevention and the impact it's having in our Black community. That has to be, we have this great report that's called Ring the Alarm. And if you haven't read it, it was published in 2019 with a group of scholars. And, we had Representative Bonnie Watson Coleman out of out of New Jersey spearhead this because of the rates of Black suicides and mental health among our children. So it's a great resource to go through, but we're still learning. And we need those supports to kind of get an idea of where we are as a Black community. But I do know this, here in Cook County, we have surpassed any other ethnicity when it comes to suicide. Asian, Hispanic, outside of white, we are the largest number of persons dying by suicide. In 2016, there was approximately 57. In 2019, I think the number went up to 58 or 59. In 2020, there were 98. So just in 1 year, yes. And that was a statistic that came based out of the July, not even the whole year had been finished. So there's a lot of work to do. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So does that
I was going to say, if you can
no,
share the link to the report that you just mentioned,
Absolutely.
I'll post it as well for people to read, and I want to read it as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. It's
Now
been
you keep out.
So with all that you've mentioned and all the work that you're doing, what's your dream end goal with it?
I might
What's gonna
cry
make
on
you
this one,
sleep
but
like a baby at night?
I hope to be a vessel to touch and to teach and to share a story, to gather people who had never experienced this or never heard of it and see the realities of what we're dealing with in a community and be able to look at our loved ones, especially those who might be in crisis or facing crisis, a little differently. But ultimately, I would like for this to not exist. It would be a great mission to say, Soul Survivors doesn't have to exist anymore because we've come as a nation and as a community to handle, things such as suicide and suicide prevention. But until that time, I'm out here in the most humblest ways, not worried about funding, not worried about, PSAs or public acknowledgments. I'm doing the work because there are lives out here, and each and every day when I do, and we have our talks and we meet with people, there's not one day that has gone by since our son is lost that somebody hasn't come to me and told me a story about something that's happened in their lives or with them. And so when I hear that, I know that there is a purpose to this cause. Yes.
True. Very true. I'm good. Dan?
Taking it in and sighing. Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
But no, we all here to support the cause in one way or the other.
Yes.
And that's all we have to do. Just support each other, keep going. It's an ambitious goal, what we're attempting to accomplish. Really ambitious goal. But it's better than sitting back and doing nothing and just complaining about the numbers. And, at least we're attempting something. So
Yes.
big ups to that and keep going.
I always say that you made a point about I couldn't imagine And you made another point about me being strong. And I just wanted to tap on those things. I always tell folks when they say that to me, I don't want you to imagine. I don't even want you to even think about this. Let me be the vessel to show the world. Because if you imagined, it would be 10 times worse than what you thought. Let's not imagine this kind of tragedy. Let's look at the outcome of what we can do to not even be a thought. And then the second piece of really people and supports, I am so humbled because I know a lot of times it's an out of body experience because the strength has to come from something higher. It is very, very emotionally taxing to talk about the loss of someone I love so dearly. But to be strong, it takes a lot of people to be with. So I always tell people, just don't let me just be the only strong person out here. Come and be strong with me. You know, they say you're doing a good job. You know, keep up the good work. I always say, come do it with me. Don't let me be out here be the only one. You know, let's gather together with this. Because at the end of the day, it's still going to be an olive branch. I talk about in the documentary, you can break a branch if you get one off the ground and just break it. But if you get about 17 of them or 25 and you try to do that, it's going to take a little bit more effort. And that's the philosophy I live with, is that I try to, and we try to as soul survivors, really bring this as a community effort and say we're going to come together on this really sticky, ugly, heartfelt, challenging, stigmatized topic. And we're going to be the face of it and show folks and other people that these supports are here. This is how we can work with it. And do not feel like this cannot touch you, because it can and it will. But we all work through it together as long as we keep connected, just like those branches. That's word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well said. Well said.
So true and beautifully said. Right. In terms of the upcoming documentary, could you repeat again what film festival it's going to be shown at and when that will be happening?
Yes, it has been recently selected at the Small Rig, SMALLRIG Film Festival, which is hosted in Culver City, California. It is part of a selection of judges that will be looking at this documentary. And Small Rig is a film festival that focuses on filmmakers that do documentaries and work that are about social issues and talk about climate of culture and so forth. So things that have to do with social movement and issues, we submitted it on that respect. And February the 16th, I believe we'll know more about the judging. I understand that there is a first and second and bronze and gold and silver, I believe. Just to be part of that is just, great for us to say. And what branches from that, we'll let you know. But we're looking for, everyone to be able to view it. And we have a available on our YouTube page. And it is, of course, a moving but true story that will impact you, like I said, and give you a lot about how this thing we read statistics on and, hear all these little stories and things of that, how it humanizes those things. It humanizes the reports. It actually gives you a face to what they speak of.
Is the film, which is on your YouTube channel, is that able to be shared? Would the Hold On campaign be able to share it on our Facebook page, or is it not available that way?
I believe so. I would have to look and see, but you can go to the Facebook page, and it's under our director, Garrett Morgan, where you can find the thing. And then the share icon, I believe, is doable. So let me know, and I'll be able to, support that if need be.
We very much want to support your efforts, and as you said, to join together. Right?
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Definitely.
Yes.
But well done for getting this far. And just be optimistic, that you come out number one.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Passion talks the most.
Yes.
And Jamal is with you, right? And all that you're doing.
I appreciate that. And thank you for this platform. This is a great, great way for us to continue our conversations. And I wish to Hold On campaign much success. Looking forward. Yes.
Thank you, Rafia. And I know we'll continue to know each other, support each other, and collaborate.
Yes, yes, please. Let's keep in touch. Let's keep in touch.
Yes. Okay, well, bye, everybody.
Okay, bye.
See you
Thanks,
later.
Afia.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you. Take care.
Bye.